This is Planet 76, your source for all things Philadelphia 76ers. We've got another great episode coming your way today, and we're cleared for takeoff. Let's go.
Welcome everybody to Planet 76. We are back with another week of content. My name is Michael, and Troy is here. Sixers are on All-Star break. The All-Star game is actually going on right now. Full disclosure, not a huge All-Star game fan. Not sure how Troy feels about that, but I'm not a massive All-Star game fan. However, All-Star Saturday night was actually spectacular. And the Sixers had a participant in the dunk contest. We'll just get straight into it, might as well. The Sixers had a participant in All-Star Saturday night. Mac McClung. The Sixers signed him to a two-way deal probably last week, I think.
Yeah.
And he won. Absolutely spectacular performance from Mac McClung. He had 4 dunks. He did them all on the first try.
Yep.
All of them were probably dunks that have never been done before.
Right.
I mean, from what I remember, I hadn't seen any of those dunks be done before, and on the first try, especially. And this dude has been, I don't know if he's been preparing for this his entire life, but starting back in high school, he was on Ball's Life mixtapes, House of Highlight clips, dunking, all these crazy flashy moves. So this has kind of been his area of expertise since he's been in high school.
Sure.
And he's only a few years older than me. I think he's 23, 24. He's been waiting for this. He's built for this, quite literally. He was built for this. He played for Georgetown, then he went to Texas Tech. And then I think the Warriors drafted him, and then he made his way to the Lakers.
Yep.
Then he got signed by the Blue Coats. And then the Sixers gave him a two-way deal so he could play in the dunk contest. Crazy stuff.
It was crazy.
Crazy stuff.
What a performance from Mac McClung. And it's such an interesting thing because the first Sixer to win the dunk contest, and yet, he hasn't even played for the Sixers. So the most interesting kind of thing you could possibly have to say, your team, to player for your team won the dunk contest, the most interesting way you can do that. They were celebrating on Broad Street because they needed something to celebrate after, the Eagles and, the Phillies and, all that stuff. So pretty cool. He did, though. He put on a show. It wasn't even close.
Mm-hmm.
It was him and Murphy in the final round, and it wasn't close. But a lot of times when dunk contests are not close, they're not fun to watch. But as Shaq said and others said, that Mac saved the dunk contest because regardless of what the other guys did, Jericho Sims got made fun of by a lot because of his dunks. So he had 2 dunks, both of them were elbow dunks. So he had 2 dunks total. He put 3 elbows in the rim, is what I said. It was crazy. But Mac did what he did, and to your point, everything he did was unique, and he had everybody on the edge of their seat. When he put that first one in, you kind of knew, you kind of get that feel, because he was the last one to go in the first round. You kind of had the feel that he was going to take it, and he did just that. And the dunks kept coming, and he did it on the first try every time, and so pretty cool, pretty great performance, avenging Andre Iguodala getting robbed back in 2006. For some of you longtime Sixers fans, you know what I'm talking about. But a cool one, and so Mac, a lot of guys, if you don't follow G League or you don't follow college basketball, you're not sure who this guy is, other than maybe you saw him on YouTube. But he was a guy that I got to watch quite a bit in college as a Big 12 basketball fan, following Texas Tech a little bit. So the guy can play. So we'll see if he ever gets a shot with the Sixers, or I just know the fans are going to go crazy if he ever checks in for the Sixers, and here in the coming weeks. So we'll see what happens there.
Cemented himself as a Sixers legend in one night.
Yes, perfectly said. A Sixers legend in one night. Really cool stuff. So today's episode, though, we had to start with Mac McClung. We had to after that performance. But today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about the Sixers nearly, signing Kevin Love after he was agreed to a buyout with the Cavaliers. Dewayne Dedmon did sign with the team. We'll talk about that. Again, we're at the All-Star break. We get a chance to pause as the Sixers don't play again until Thursday. We're recording on the 19th, which is a Sunday, so a little bit of time here. And so where the Sixers are at the break, the Eastern Conference standings, a look at that as they come to the end of the season, and why I think seeding in the Eastern Conference can make a huge difference if the Sixers want a chance in the playoffs, and we'll talk a little bit about that, especially with all that's transpired in the Eastern Conference at the trade deadline. And then we're going to look ahead a little bit to the 3 games coming up. Sixers are entering into a little bit of a tough schedule, so we'll see what happens, see if they can stay afloat and in the hunt for the Eastern Conference. But let's start, again, with Dewayne Dedmon and Kevin Love. So take me through your perspective on that. So Dewayne Dedmon kind of signed out of nowhere. Then it was rumored a couple days ago Kevin Love looking between the Heat and the Sixers. And to me, what I saw all over the place social media-wise was, some people were like, this is a perfect fit if the Sixers get Kevin Love. Some people were like, this is horrendous. This is stupid. This is dumb. Why would they want Kevin Love? He's not a 5. We're already set at the 4. He can't defend the pick and roll. And so I was like, I don't know. I haven't seen Kevin Love really play a lot lately. But take me through, obviously big men are a concern for the Sixers. And they didn't get one at the deadline, but they signed Dedmon and almost get Kevin Love. Would you have liked Kevin Love? Just walk me through that from your perspective.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the Dedmon signing.
Same.
I don't know. I kind of just have mixed feelings. Not even really mixed feelings. I'm just kind of neutral on it. I don't think it's good. My initial reaction was this kind of sucks, but looking back, or not looking back, but thinking about it further, I'm kind of on the side of just, it's fine. It doesn't move the needle. It doesn't really make the Sixers worse per se, because
right.
Dewayne Dedmon can still hold his own on both ends of the floor, so it's fine. It's not a game-changing move. I don't know what the mindset behind it was from a front office perspective. I'm never gonna know. We're never gonna know probably. So I'm not even gonna try and dwell on that. And as for the Kevin Love thing, I think it would have been a great pickup. There were obviously concerns with his age, with his ability to defend, but when you have a guy, excuse me, when you have a guy like Kevin Love, who could space the floor pretty well, rebound pretty well too, that's valuable. And he's a guy who could play alongside Paul Reed. He can play alongside Montrezl Harrell if Glenn still, I don't even know what he's thinking now, because the Sixers have 3 backup centers, and I don't know.
Right.
That's a whole, I don't even want to get into that really right now. That's a whole different conversation, but I think Kevin Love would have been a great pickup. He wouldn't be somebody you rely on in the playoffs, but he would be somebody that you can give minutes to and get some decent production out of them.
Sure.
So I think it would have been a great pickup, but ultimately he signed with the Heat. So, sure.
Yeah. I think the key in all of this, so, again, they get Dedmon. I think you hit the nail on the head a little bit as far as, the hope is, and maybe from the front office perspective, the hope is this doesn't hurt, right? The hope is that a guy like Dedmon can only help, or it's going to stay the same. He might come in and not play, and that doesn't hurt us, right? Because he's not on the court. But if he gets some minutes and shows some flashes and shows some ability to help and shows some ability to be a reliable backup big in the, X amount of minutes that he's going to get in the playoffs. Again, we're not asking a guy to come in and be a starter. It's always a different thing when you think about even where Dedmon's coming from. He's not coming from playing behind Joel Embiid, So it's a different thing to come into a role where, okay, all I got to do if I do end up earning this position is play 10 minutes and do something. Get a few rebounds, set a few picks, get a couple of layups. Who knows? But the hope is, again, I think the hope for all Sixers fans is that this just doesn't hurt. And if it does anything, it could help. That is the hope. Kevin Love, I think it would have been.
Crossed.
I think it would have been cool. Again, I don't know about all the fit, and that's hard to say because you don't know how it's going to work until he's there. But again, I would have treated that the same as Dedmon as far as the hope. I would have been a little more excited about Kevin Love,
Mhm,
but
definitely.
I think as far as like hope, it would have been okay. Hopefully he can come and contribute and not screw up even what the Sixers are currently doing, not mess with George Niang's flow. If he was going to get some backup 4 minutes. But anyway, Sixers do get Dedmon. To your point, it does make things even more interesting at the backup center spot. And I think if I recall correctly, we were talking about it on the podcast. The hope I think we had for the playoffs was for it, if it was Reed or Harrell, for it to at least be someone that you can expect rather than situational stuff. Are we still now? How does it work with 3 guys? Is it Dedmon? Okay, let's go Dedmon if we need veteran experience, or Reed if we need defense, and Harrell if we need offense. Is that too situational for you when it comes to a playoff series? Should it just be one guy?
I think it's going to be even more situational now because what do you bring in Dedmon for if not for certain situations where you need a bigger presence, perhaps defensively? Where does he fit if not there? So
because he's 6'10",
yeah,
245.
he's way bigger and taller than Reed and Harrell. So my assumption is that he's here for defensive purposes as well as rebounding. And I think Paul Reed still might be the best rebounder of the bunch here, but Dedmon is certainly no slouch when it comes to rebounding. So I don't know. I think it's going to be even way more situational now than it ever was with Harrell and Reed because in a sense you have options between Harrell, Reed, and Dedmon, but it might be too many options and it might not always be the right option either because Dedmon could take minutes from Reed where Reed could be just as beneficial as Dedmon, or even Harrell could take minutes from Reed.
Right.
So, I don't know. I think this makes things a little more complicated / confusing. Yeah. And I don't think Glenn Rivers feels this way because he would much rather play a 35-year-old over Paul Reed. So, I don't think he feels the exact same way, but that's how I feel.
Yeah, and I'm with you. It certainly confuses things. I think it gives Glenn Rivers more of a challenge to know who to play. Or
we know he's not good with dilemmas like this. He always makes the wrong choice.
Past experience doesn't favor well for this type of situation, because this is extremely situational now. Yeah. It's a whole new world, and again, in a 7-game playoff series, is Glenn going to make the right decision? And does that, if we go into a series,
probably not.
against fill in the blank team, probably not. Against the Cavs, let's say, okay, Paul Reed's the guy. Against the Cavs, we go into game 1. Paul Reed doesn't play well. Do we trust Glenn to make a decision in game 2 to give the minutes to somebody else? That's where it's going to be a factor for me is Doc going to be super situational where it doesn't matter, like, with your eyes, what you're watching, that it's not working. And then is he going to be willing to make an adjustment and go to the guy? The cool thing about having 3 options is that, again, if you do run into a series or a couple games in a series where someone just isn't doing it tonight, you have the opportunity to say, all right, we're not going to let this ride anymore. We're gonna play Harrell. We're gonna play Dedmon. And maybe some playoff teams in the NBA not going to have that luxury like the Sixers do. The hope is, again, we keep saying a hope, but we don't know what it's going to look like with Glenn.
With this roster.
Right. So interesting pickup, to say the least. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what, 20-some games left.
That's a good word for it.
Interesting. Yes. All right. Moving on from the backup big situation. So the Eastern Conference, as we sit today at the All-Star break, I'm just going to read the top 10, and then we'll discuss a little bit and say why seeding is so important. So Boston Celtics leading the charge at 42-17. Milwaukee just a half game back, 41-17, followed by the Sixers, 38-19, 3 games back from the Celtics, 2 games back in the loss column. The Cavaliers, a couple back of them, sitting at 38-23. Then the Nets, Knicks, Heat, Hawks, Wizards, Raptors, which are all ranging from 34-24 to 28-31. That's the 10 if the playoffs were to start today, with the 4 of those obviously in the play-in. So, Michael, yes or no, the Eastern Conference got a little worse, I guess, for lack of a better word, worse at the All-Star break, right? Yes?
Yeah,
With the departures of Kevin Durant
Kyrie and KD are
Kyrie
gone,
Irving.
and
right.
the assumption was that KD was going to come back at some point,
Right.
and the Nets still could have been kind of competitive. They
Sure.
still could maybe maintain a 6th seed, 7th seed, and now they're the 5 because they built up such a huge lead over everyone else back in January, late December. So they have that cushion right now. But who knows? I mean, they're the what's the word I'm looking for? The thought is that the Nets are going to fall in the standings now that KD is gone. But if KD stayed, a lot of people would assume that they'd stick around to the 5-6 seed. So, and no Kyrie obviously. So yeah, I think the East got weaker, worse. I think is also a good word, like you said.
So what team? I have a couple questions based on the standings for you, and then I'm gonna say something that I see that I think it's my big point for today's episode. All right, so of these teams that are below the top 3, so Cavs, Nets, Knicks, Heat, Hawks, Wizards, Raptors, which team do you think? Now this is all about how you interpret the question, but which team do you think has potential, to make some noise come playoff time, or which team even is a scare or somewhat of a threat, just not necessarily to the Sixers, but to do something in the Eastern Conference? Which of these teams, if you could pick one?
Well, if I had to pick one, I'd say the Heat.
Agreed.
And we saw now. Here's the thing with the Heat. I think I've talked about the Heat here on this podcast a few times. Yeah. You probably should not count the Heat out at any point in time. Right. And if anything, the bubble showed us that. And if anything, last year showed us that. Because they made the Eastern Conference Finals again. And they were one game from the finals. Not again, but they were one game from the finals.
Right.
So, if anything, we just should not be downing that team. And when you say what team is the scariest, if I'm maybe anybody besides the Celtics, I'm scared of the Heat in the East. I am.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm with you there.
Maybe even the Celtics too. I don't know, but at least that.
Well, the Heat is the team. Obviously, it appears the last few years that it doesn't matter where they land in the standings. I absolutely agree. That's the one team, outside of the Celtics, Bucks, area. I mean, Miami's sitting at 32-27, and yet you don't want to see them.
No,
you just don't want to see them. All right, second question. So, because I just, again, with the departure of the two guys from the Nets, the dumpster fire going on there, the Heat struggling, but again, we're a little scared of them. The Cavaliers, I don't know that we feel. I know you don't feel it. We had this conversation a while back. I don't think they belong in the same category as the word threat, per se. But so the Celtics, Bucks, Sixers. What percentage chance do you give to one of those three teams representing the Eastern Conference in the finals? So Celtics, Bucks, Sixers. What's the percentage that one of those teams goes to the finals? I think it's pretty freaking high.
What
I don't know about
percentage? What was the question?
Those three teams.
I kind of lost myself there.
So Celtics, Bucks, Sixers.
Oh.
What's the percentage that the team that goes to the finals will be one of those three?
90.
Yeah,
95.
Right. And the reason I ask that is because, I think, obviously, it's still pretty freaking high if you just do Bucks and Celtics.
I'm leaving room for the Heat, because I just
the 5%'s the Heat.
I don't know.
Right. The 5 or 10% is Miami. But, again, if you take even, and I don't know what the bets are or whatever out there, but, if you take just the Celtics and the Bucks, the percentage is pretty freaking high. Yeah. I don't know, 75? I don't know.
I agree.
But so that's when it comes to the big point on today's episode. Who gets the 1 seed is huge. So we can pretty much assume that the Celtics, Bucks, Sixers are going to be 1, 2, 3, And what we know that means based on the way the playoffs are set up is that the 1 plays the 8, the 2 plays 7, 3 plays 6, 4 plays 5. But in the second round, the 1 seed, if they beat the 8 seed, will play the winner of the 4-5 series. And what we know that also means is that the 2 plays the 3 in the second round, meaning that 2 of those teams are going to play each other in the Eastern Conference semifinals. One of those teams, of those 3, the 1 seed, if they do what they're supposed to do, doesn't have to see one of the other 2. One, they don't have to see both of them. They only have to see one, and it wouldn't be until the conference finals. So as of right now, the Celtics are sitting pretty. So potentially, they would play, they play maybe the Miami Heat or the Knicks in the first round, followed by potentially the Cavaliers or the Nets, and then the Bucks or the Sixers. I mean, while the Sixers would have to play, someone in the first round, then they'd have to play the Bucks, then they'd have to play the Celtics. That's not fun. That does not make for an easy path. So that's why I think the 1 seed, and the Sixers still have shot. They're 2 games back in the loss column. The 1 seed is huge this year, is it not? I mean, it's huge.
The Sixers need to get the 1 seed.
Right.
I don't care.
Not to mention home. I noticed in all of that, I didn't even say home court at all.
No, they need to get the 1 seed. I don't care what it takes. I don't care what needs to happen. The Sixers need to get the first seed in the Eastern Conference for the playoffs. That could honestly be their only chance to get to the Eastern Conference Finals, because you have to play the Bucks or the Celtics in the second round. I don't know about that. I don't like that at all. If I'm the Sixers, I don't like that in the slightest. So I'm taking the Hawks and the Cavs or Nets in the second round
to go to the semi.
I'm so doing that because those that sequence of 2 series, probably the easiest combination you can get to make the conference finals. And I know the Sixers are, at least a couple guys are pretty well aware of this, and more of them will be more well aware of this once the season winds to a close with the last 23 games, whatever is left. The Sixers need to get the first seed in the Eastern Conference more than probably any year in the past 3-4 years.
Right. And a lot of that is simply due, the reason that comes to mind for you and for me is because of primarily for me, because of the departure of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Now, again, if the Nets were the 4 seed, then it's like, okay, those 4 teams, I don't want to play any of them. But with a window that opens where it's, the Sixers can get the 1 and only have to play the Bucks or the Celtics, one of them, between them and the finals. Again, some other teams. We had this conversation in 2021 when the Sixers did get the 1 seed and fell to a team that we didn't think they were going to fall to. So anything can happen, but I don't want to play the Bucks and the Celtics just to make the finals, right? Like, that's brutal. That's brutal. So 1 seed is huge. So I guess the question from that is, can they do it, and how can that happen? They've got opportunity against the Celtics at home to shrink the deficit to 1. They got, again, the upcoming schedule is pretty tough. How do they do it? What's the secret? How do they do it?
There's no secret. They need to win. They need to continue winning. They're only 3 games back, like Troy just said. They're gonna have to leapfrog the Bucks and the Celtics. I mean, at one point, the Sixers were, I think, 1 game or 1.5 games out of first.
Yeah,
they need to keep winning, and they need to hope that the Celtics lose a few. And a win against the Celtics, funny enough, 6 days from today, would help a lot. Would really help a lot. Because the Sixers control their own destiny in this scenario like that. Hey, we want the first seed. We need the Celtics to lose. Let's give them a loss. And then in turn, we get a win. Gives us 1 game closer.
They play Boston twice at home. So one, obviously this week, and then coming up early April, they play the Bucks and the Celtics back to back. So that could be, that's going to be the last 4 or 5 games of the season. They play both of them. So that's going to be massive. Bucks are also coming up on the schedule soon at Milwaukee twice to finish the season. That's not ideal. Not ideal at all, but we'll see what happens. So, again, upcoming schedule for the Sixers after the break. They get Memphis at home on Thursday, Boston at home on Saturday, Miami at home on Monday, and then they go to Miami on Wednesday. So 2 before we record again. Thursday, Saturday, Memphis, Boston, national TV games. Good teams, big stars, big names, but at home at the Wells Fargo Center. So it'd be great to take care of business there. Team gets a little rest. I mean, Joel's been playing a lot. I mean, he hasn't missed many games at all as of recent. He's played several in a row. So yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to those games. That's gonna be fun. It'd be nice to win those.
Extremely nice to win those.
All right. So, Memphis at home, Boston at home, and again, Miami, Dallas, Milwaukee after that, all on the road. Wow, besides the first Miami game. So a little bit of a tough stretch, and I think we'll, if the Sixers are within a game or two still after that, they definitely got a shot. But if they fall to 5-6 back, because that could happen too, then it's not going to be looking so pretty. Man, what a tough road that is going to be for the 76ers. We'll see if they can get it done, see how many dubs they can get in that. I guess just for fun, so Celtics Bucks, who do you can answer this from a Sixers fan perspective, who are you more afraid of or scared of or don't want to see? Let's just say that. Who do you not want to see? And even who do you give the edge between those two teams if they play against each other?
The answer to both of those questions is the Celtics.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have one reason as to why that's correct, and that's their depth.
Yeah, 100%.
The Sixers witnessed
100%.
it. I mean, they were missing 3 guys of their main guys, and then they had 6 guys go for 17.
And I talked about this in a post a couple of days ago, why I don't think the Sixers are contenders just yet. Because, one reason, what separates them from other teams, or I should say what separates other teams from them, is depth. And you just hit on that. Teams have guys 1 through 8, 9, 10 who can play, who can show up and play every single night no matter who's playing, who's not. The Sixers, since they traded for Jalen McDaniels, they have 8, sometimes 9, but those 2 players, 2-3 players, that's the difference. That's the difference. And I think the Celtics, the Nuggets, one of their biggest strengths is depth. Both teams have guys. And the Sixers do as well, but it's a little different.
Yeah.
It's a little different.
It just is. And the way I can, say that that's different is, again, just in terms of scoring. Yeah. So Celtics have, again, they did it against the Sixers. Had bench guys go for 16, 17, 18, multiple of them. First-hand experience witnessing that. The Sixers, again, obviously, they have Tyrese Maxey off the bench. Are you kidding me? He can go for 40 in a playoff game.
Sure.
But as much as, he can go off, he's an exception to all of this. He's an outlier. But, you think Shake Milton, Niang, I was going to say Matisse because that's who we're used to seeing. Matisse, McDaniels now, Paul Reed, Montrezl Harrell, whatever. Sure, they're NBA players. Yeah, they can go for 15. But the Celtics guys do it more regularly.
Great point.
Right? The Celtics bench players do it more regularly than Shake Milton goes for 14 or 15. So, hey, maybe Mac McClung will go for 15 or something. Who knows? But, all right. That's a good conversation. So the Celtics, and I agree with that. I think the depth. As scary as Giannis is, he's one man.
And the Bucks do have depth too, but
Drew Holiday's
it's still
having,
not the same, I think.
It's a little different. The Celtics just have some guys that can, you plug and play, and you're going to get 15.
Yeah.
Which is hard to defend in a series because you don't know who's going to go off. And not to mention depth, but they have star power.
That's true.
Obviously, in Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, but specifically Tatum, that dude is good. So, all right. Anything else for episode 85 of the pod?
I think we covered a lot of ground in this one. I like how this one turned out. Yeah.
I like it as well. So we'll have to think of a title unless you've got one on the spot.
I'll brainstorm.
Got a few. You can text them to me. We'll reveal those. Yeah. We'll pick one. So episode 85 in the books. All-Star break. Sixers couple games back. First place. We'll see what they can do post All-Star break to pursue the all-important 1 seed in the playoffs. All right, that's episode 85, Planet 76. We'll see you next time. Peace. If you are a Philadelphia 76ers fan, this is the podcast for you. Planet 76, a weekly podcast covering all things Philadelphia 76ers. We'll see you next time.